Hi, Canon here with Gear Talk episode 11. Today I'll be comparing the Canon EF 50mm f1.8 STM version with the EOS R adapter to the Canon RF 50mm f1.8 RF mount STM version on the Canon R6. I figured I'd make this video in case anyone was in the same boat as I was, wondering if I should keep the EF 50mm or to sell it. So I'll show you the setup that I did to take the sample photos. We'll pull them up on screen, do a direct comparison, and then also look at video autofocus. So depending on photo or video, the video portion might interest you more if you mainly do video. So this is the setup. I have a light, something really shiny and reflective. I use these whiteboard markers as a subject to focus on. I have a camera on the tripod, and I'll take a set of photos with the EF 50mm with the adapter, and then some with the 50mm RF f1.8, and compare them on the computer later. But this is the setup, just to step through the different apertures and seeing what the results look like side by side. Okay, now I'm on the computer, taking a look at the two images, unprocessed raw files in Lightroom. Put it into compare mode. So on the left we have the 50mm and RF, and on the right the EF mount. Can tell the settings on the screen. Both taken with the same camera settings, raw files, untouched in Lightroom as is. So let's zoom in. I try to frame it. There's a little bit of difference, even though I didn't move the tripod with the adapter. I think there's a little bit difference in the two images, but I tried to frame it as best as I could when I was eyeballing it. So I focused on the markers in this picture, and zooming in, here's the side-by-side at f1.8, wide open. Looking at the letters on the marker, I think the RF one might be a little bit sharper if you zoomed in to look at it. The color around the blue there looks a little bit cleaner on the RF one. And then next we'll look at the bokeh on the lens. The rendering is very similar at f1.8 on both lenses. There's a little bit of chromatic aberration around the bokeh there, as you can see. There's a tinge of green and yellow. As well, if we look at the reflector in the picture, same thing along the edge. Maybe the RF one's a tad better. Let me know if you see the difference between the two. So that is at f1.8. Next we have it at stepping it to f2. RF again on the left, EF on the right. At f2, looks super similar. Again, a little detail along the marker here, the color. I don't know if the lens was just sturdy, or if there's actually some difference in how the color got rendered there. But in terms of sharpness, it looks very similar. Looking at the bokeh or the out of focus parts on this lens in the background at f2, looks very similar. And in the reflector, the bright, super highlight, reflective, shiny reflective part at f2, it looks very similar. So at f2.5, zooming in, looking at the letters, The EF actually looks a little bit cleaner on the blue marker there. Also on the red. But then it's cleaner on the green on the RF. .5, the bokeh between both lenses. The chromatic aberration is getting a little bit better. Still noticeable. From f1.8 to f2.5, I guess this can be removed in post pretty easily, the amount that's on there. It's not end of the world. For the prices of these lenses, definitely for camera lenses pricing, they're the cheaper end, so they definitely won't be the best optically, but they are good lenses to have to learn how to use it, control the depth of field as a good starter lens. At f3.5, zooming in, very similar. Even at the f1.8, differences in sharpness, you would only see it when you're pixel peeping, like what I'm doing right now on Instagram or social media. When the images are compressed even slightly, you probably won't tell the difference. Again, I don't know if you have a if this 50mm is on a R5 with the more megapixels, then maybe the RF is the way to go, where it is a little bit sharper. But on the R6, it's definitely not super noticeable, the differences. In the bokeh here at 3.5, the chromatic aberration has gotten a lot better. Still there in the reflector in the background there. At f5.6, we set up the RF on the left, EF on the right. 5.6. Zooming in on the markers. Looks fairly close. In sharpness, I wouldn't say one is significantly better than the other. I guess it's a repeating theme. And looking at the out of focus areas, more of the letters are starting to come into focus, but they're still pretty blurry here. And looking at the chromatic aberration, pretty much gone at 5.6. I purposely I purposely had a light nearby the reflector, so it's one of the really bright reflective surfaces that you can see. Jumping to f10, just because of seeing all those little steps, was probably too many. ISO 2000 and much slower shutter speed, but it's on a tripod. Yeah, very similar again at f10. And the out of focus area, more details are coming into focus. You can tell that it's Canon 10 to 18mm. It looks like at f10 the RF actually rendered a little bit clearer on the 10 to 18mm there. And you can start to make out the image stabilization on the lens a little bit more than the EF. And then chromatic aberration, pretty much not there anymore. I don't see any huge green or yellow. A little glow from just the reflection from the reflective surface there, but no color. Maybe a little bit here in the EF one, but not huge compared to what we were seeing at f1.8. At f22, Looks like actually there's a little bit more detail on the marker lid on the EF one, maybe. Again, it's so little, it's really hard to tell, even on a big screen. At f22, the background blur is completely gone. I think definitely in the RF in the background, this 10 to 18 rendered a little bit sharper. And this EFS, an image stabilizer. Maybe it has to do with the adapter and the spacing, but at this noise level, it is noticeable that the RF was a little bit better there. And on the reflector side, completely no color chromatic aberration. And you can see the detail even in the reflector, the surface on the inside of the reflector. And you can also see the dust on the front, on the floor, or on the tabletop surface that this photo is taken, which is pretty cool at f22. So yeah, these are the images pulled up on Lightroom. Let me know if you could tell the differences between the images once it's posted on YouTube. Leave it in the comments below and let me know what you think, if you think my assessment between the sharpness was noticeable, or if you shot these on both the R5 or EOS R and have comparison images. Please let me know what you've seen in your experience. I was just curious and wanted to see these on the computer. So yeah, hope that was helpful. So this is the EF version. Marker, lens, reflector, marker, lens, reflector, marker, lens, reflector. This is the Canon 50mm f1.8 RF version. Marker, lens, reflector. I couldn't tell many differences between the different f-stops between the two lenses. They were fairly similar image quality. I wouldn't say the 50mm RF mount was any better. They're both cheap, nifty 50s on the Canon line, so image quality there is as much as you'll get from that price range. As long as you're not nitpicky on the R6 at the 20 megapixels, maybe that's not a huge problem. Maybe on the R5 you might see more, you might have issues with image quality, or you might be a little bit more picky when you're shooting at that many more megapixels. In terms of video autofocus, the RF was definitely faster. You could see it in the focusing video as well as the touchscreen. I think it's because of the motor stroke and how much the lens element actually move. When I looked at the front of the element, the EF 50mm seemed to travel out further, and I think that increased the speed. And it makes sense that with the new RF mount technology that they could work on the autofocus a lot faster, especially when it's native on the Canon R6. So in summary, I would say if you have other DSLR that can use the 50mm EF mount, I would keep the EF mount and use it with the adapter. If you're just mainly taking photos, yeah, I don't think it's a huge upgrade for you to switch to the RF version. If you're doing video primary, I think it's worth selling this lens, your EF mount, and buying the RF. Personally, for me, I will probably sell my EF 50mm, even though I have a 5D Mark III or Mark IV to use it on. but I haven't been using this lens on that camera anyways, so I'll most likely keep the 50mm, the RF version with the Canon R6, just because of all the new features on the R6. Because I'm also doing a little bit of video, I think I like the idea that it's faster in autofocusing, and I think it was a tad quieter. I have no like scientific proof or data for that. So yeah, hopefully this video was helpful, and that helps you decide whether to keep your EF mount 50mm f1.8 or not, or upgrading it to the RF version. Yeah, both of them are pretty like small lenses. Obviously it's a lot bigger once you have the adapter on, but without the adapter they're very similar size. Canon's done a great job of keeping this nifty 50 pretty small, and yeah, it's just a great overall carry around lens because it's a smaller form factor. And yeah, if you're not in a rush, definitely don't buy the RF 50mm just for image quality. I would just save up and get the 50mm Sigma art lens f1.4, or save up for the newer RF 50mm f1.2 lenses, L lenses. Get that full upgrade. So these nifty 50s are definitely good intros, and if you have them, I would just keep it and use it on the adapter. And yeah, if you don't have a 50mm and want to find one for your mirrorless Canon camera, I would just go right ahead and jump into the RF mount, and not waste time going back unless you already have the adapter and you can find a good deal on the EF mount. Yeah, hopefully this video was helpful, and if you like the video, just hit the like and subscribe button, and yeah, let me know what your feedback are on these two lenses and what your experiences are. I definitely have used my EF 50mm f1.8 a lot. I like that with the STM lens. It's a lot quieter than the original ones that Canon had before, which was really loud and slow with autofocus. They already made the STM version a lot better. But anyways, that's it for this episode. Hope you enjoy. Bye.